Hi everybody, it's Rob Jolliffe. It's time for another Ask the Experts. And today we're going to talk about the Sabre Limited implementation timeline. I'm going to go over the timeline and a little bit of how our implementation methodology works. Let's jump into this. All right, great. So I want to talk about the Sabre Limited implementation timeline. Like, this is basically an overview of how we do implementations, what the timeline looks like. It's a frequent question, and I thought it'd be great to answer it here. I'm Rob Jolliffe. I'm president of Sabre Limited. I'm an expert in supply chain and ERP implementation, just general technology guy. But I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna talk very specifically about the Sabre methodology today and how we do things when we're implementing ERP. I'm making a couple assumptions generally in my videos that you're a manufacturing company if you're watching this, although this particular segment is pretty applicable to other types of businesses as well, and that you're looking for what's called a mid-market ERP. You're a smaller business. You're not looking to spend $1 million on an ERP system. You're looking for something in the hundreds of thousands at the most. A lot of people do want to chat with me about these videos. Down in the links below, we have a link to my calendar. It's super easy, and I'm just going to answer questions. I love hearing questions about the videos that I record from people. So if you have anything you want to talk to me about, please don't hesitate to leave a comment or to put a calendar invite for me. We do try and answer the comments. So if you have a question, you want to ask the question in the comments, we'll answer it as well. Okay, so today's video is about the Sabre implementation timeline. We're going to get into that pretty quickly, but I want to just kind of start with a quote that I love. Most people know the Einstein quote that the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. This is another quote from Einstein that I really like. Paraphrase, the best solution to a problem is the simplest that isn't too simple. And I really love this quote. I think it's fantastic. I've been using it a lot lately, and it just really defines Sabre's approach. So what we do is and you can find these on our website. We have 3 project tiers that we create, which are bronze, silver, and gold for clients. And these define, the way I put it is that they're a simple solution set. So each tier, bronze, silver, gold, is a simple solution set that is simple enough for businesses of certain sizes. So obviously bronze is going to be simple enough for a fairly simple, low complexity business that's moving into its first ERP, and gold is going to be simple enough for a more complex, more sophisticated business that maybe has an ERP and is just looking to replicate its functionality and then grow with it. So people say, but wait, I want all these other features. So I like your bronze package. Its pricing is appropriate for me, but I want all these other features to be part of the ERP implementation as well. And what I say to that is add them later, because you can kind of think of an ERP system as like building a house, and you might not do your hardscaping, and you might not do your gardening, and you might not do some of the interior renovations you want to do right away, like a basement renovation. You might not do that the day you move into your house, but you have it as plans that you're going to do later. And honestly, that's ultimately the best plan. What I have said to clients is, if you just give you the housing example, if you want to buy a house and then move into it right away, but you want the basement finished, you want all the hardscaping, you're going to wait longer because they're going to have to do all of that stuff after the house is built before you move into it, and you won't be able to enjoy living in the house. It's the same with an ERP. So if you're going to get an ERP system and you ultimately want to move into your new ERP system and have it complete, you're going to wait longer. So if you move into the ERP system with the simple tier that I've described and start using it, and then do those extra, I'll call them renovations, the continuous process improvement to improve the system, over time, you're going to end up being in the same place at the same time. You're going to end up at the point where it's all finished, let's say 2 years after you start. If you do the simple implementation I'm suggesting, you'll be moved into the ERP sooner and using it and getting value out of it. And I think that's the major reason why we want to do it that way. So another thing to say is that I'm going to show you a timeline. The generic timeline, this is about an 8-month timeline, which kind of falls in the middle of these ranges here. And I'm talking about the core project, not to the point you go live. Sometimes there's a gap, and I'll show that in the timeline. But for bronze, silver, and gold, depending on the type of manufacturing you are, they take various lengths of time because there's more or less activities that are involved in them. And for instance, in a print manufacturing, those take the longest to do because you have to configure something called estimating in print manufacturing. And that estimating configuration can take quite a long time. Okay, so let's talk about the timeline. Let's go through it. So my basic project timeline here that I've set out is a 12-month timeline. And like I said, I'm going to do sort of that middling, silver middle type length of time duration on this timeline. But we've started on January 1, 2099, sort of fictional year. Not really fictional, but long time coming. And what we begin with in a project is we begin with a discovery. And the discovery is, we'll say, a 5-week, 4-week, 5-week period of time that our consultants work with your teams in the different departments of your organization. Now, typically, we don't need everybody. If you have a purchasing department with 8 people, we don't need all 8 people involved. We might need 2 people involved in it. If you have a production department, and obviously you have shop floor supervisors, and you have your plant manager and foreman, and so you probably are only going to bring, again, 2 or 3 people in for the shop floor part of the discovery. So the discovery process is where my team, and Sabre is very specialized. So our teams, we have our own departments. Like we have people who handle purchasing and supply chain and warehousing, and they're experts in that. So they'll be matched with your team who have the same kind of skill set. Typically at Sabre, we might have 3 consultants working on a project with a client, and you would have 4 or 5 teams of people, of 2, let's say, per department who would be involved in that discovery. So that's discovered. Then we get into something called theory. Theory is training, but you're not using the system. You're not learning to use the system. You're learning what the system can and can't do. And the challenge with theory is that you need critical thinkers who really kind of understand the business, who are pretty good at learning software. They should definitely not be the one finger clicky typists. They should be people who are more comfortable with computers, more comfortable with software, who are going to learn its capabilities, and they're going to make decisions, business decisions on how it should be used within your organization, within the limits of that bronze, silver, gold. This is followed by adjustment. And adjustment period is where those decisions that have to be made are documented, and between Sabre and you, we are configuring, adjusting the system to create a training environment. That's going to mean the loading of some data. That's going to be the configuration and settings of certain settings. It might mean the installation of add-ons. And then at the end of that adjustment period, and that adjustment period is driven by your team because your team have to get the data. That adjustment period, you go into training. And this is more legitimate training to use the system. Now, our recommendation is you start with the sort of the theory team that started the process, and then you gradually add more people. So as the training goes on, towards the end of training, you are going to maybe have double the number of people involved. But you're not going to have everybody in the organization because there's still some bugs to work out. There's still like decisions that might be changed. So you're not necessarily learning their day-to-day function. You're more learning the key people, the power users, are learning to navigate the system and understand it. Then you go into piloting. So training is very much driven by Sabre. Piloting is very much driven by you. Piloting is where you take the training and you put it in practice. And this often, by the way, is where projects fall apart, because sometimes the client, they go from that training into the piloting and they just don't know what to do. They're like, what are we supposed to do? We don't, okay, you trained us, but now what? We're going to give you at the beginning of training something called a user acceptance test, and it's a list of all the features and functions of the system that you have to be able to succeed with. And we'll get back to that in just a second. So that's your goals. This is what to pass the course, here's your curriculum, or here's your outcomes that you have to be able to achieve. And it is up to you with our guidance to actually start working through those. But you have homework. You have a lot of homework in piloting, and that's where, if people don't engage with that homework, that's where projects fall apart. So you have a core project. In this case, it's about 8 months. We do phase reviews between each of these 3 steps so that we're kind of reviewing with you where we've been, where we're going, and what's happening. And you'll notice there isn't a phase review between training and piloting because training rolls into piloting. It's kind of a blended period. Near the end of piloting, you're going to have something we call a pilot event. And the pilot itself is a run through of orders. Think of it as running your system in parallel. You're not trying to run every single thing in parallel. That's a bad idea. I have another video about why not to do that. But you are going to take really good samples from the previous system and you're going to run them in parallel in the new system during the pilot. And if everything goes well and your users can sign off on that list I talked about earlier, the user acceptance testing, then you will have a sign off and you will pick a go live date. So this is where the user acceptance testing generally finishes. You'll notice there's a little gap and then you pick a go live week or month. And it's typically the beginning of a month, and we allocate resources for the beginning of the month each month, but we only have so many slots that we can do go lives. You can go live in the middle of the month, but we haven't allocated resources for that. So when you go live in the beginning of the month, you're going to get more capacity at Sabre for your go live to support your team. Like for the first 2 weeks of the month, we know we're going to be doing go lives and we've kind of allocated more time. Whereas in the last 2 weeks of the month, we know we're preparing for go lives. And so we don't have as many resources available to support a go live, which means that if you go live in the middle, you're kind of getting a lower level of go live support. And you have to, you have to be cognitive of that. Some customers say, we want to go live in September, come hell or high water. And September 15th is fine, but then you're going to have September 15th to September 30th, kind of a lower level of support. So you pick your go live based on what's available from Sabre, and you cannot pick a go live until you've passed that test. We just don't allow it. We've had clients do it. It ends up being a problem. Okay. So start with a small group. This is your smallest group of people. Then you expand that into a sort of a mid-sized group. And then everyone gets trained on the system near the end, just before you go live. And that actually is why this gap is here. This is often your time to make sure that your entire team is prepared for this go live. And the accounting department closes the books and gets everything ready, and you're ready to go live on your go live date. These 3 phases, I kind of hinted at this, are driven by us. We set the dates, we set the schedule, and we drive you along. So we've got you guys pushing. We're pushing you through these 3 phases because we have a really well-established curriculum that we're following. But in these 2 phases, you guys have to drive it because we've now finished the training and the course material, etc. It's your time to prep for your exam. This is your study time. And if you're not studying and you're not working and you're not doing homework, you're just dragging things out. Now, unlike a school, we delay your exam. So if you have an exam on October 15th at school, you have to study for it, you miss it, you don't get another shot. We just push it out to November 15th and December 15th. And for some people, that's a little bit of too easy of a thing, and they therefore don't get their work done. So your team stages, those ones that I just highlighted, that your team drives, that's where we see the most delay because you need to pick up the ball. At that point, we finished everything we can do to get you to the point where you're prepared to start doing homework. You have to start doing homework. Then we'll coach you. We'll put tutoring sessions in. We'll spend an enormous amount of time with you after that point if you need it, but you have to drive it. If you're not doing that work and you're not calling on us to do those tutoring sessions, then it's not moving forward. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It is meant for people who are interested in working with Sabre and going forward with the project, but I hope it really covered off this topic of an implementation timeline, even for those of you who are not looking to work with Sabre. It gives you a bit of an idea of both your responsibilities and what implementations generally look like. We try and release new videos weekly. I do new videos maybe monthly. Sometimes I do a couple in a week and then take a break. But you could click on the subscribe button below and to follow the channel. Please like the video if you enjoyed it because it really does help us get some more visibility on YouTube. If you'd like to contact us, here's our contact information. And once again, you can always book that meeting with me below. Thanks very much for watching the video. I really enjoy all the feedback I get. Don't hesitate to leave comments. Have a great day, everybody. Okay.